Alright, so here are my favorite Tarantino films. I know you guys don't really give a shit what I have to say at the beginning of my video, so I'll just go ahead and talk about the movies. My Best Friend's Birthday. The only film on this list I can say I didn't really enjoy. I mean, I didn't expect the film to be good in the first place. To be honest, I only watched the film out of curiosity because, well, it's Tarantino's first film. And like most first films, it's nonsensical and hard to follow. It has a few funny lines here and there, but other than that, it doesn't really have many redeemable qualities. There's not really much more to say about it, it's pretty forgettable. I don't even remember what the fucking film was about. My Best Friend's Birthday is about 30 minutes long, but it felt way longer than that, and not in a good way. The only reason to watch My Best Friend's Birthday is to say I've seen every single Tarantino film. Other than that, there's no other reason. Okay, even though Death Proof is at the number 10 spot, I still consider it a really good movie. Yeah, this film has the weakest plot out of all the Tarantino movies, but it also has a really good cast of characters. I love the soundtrack of the film. Probably one of my favorites from Tarantino. And it just seems like every single person involved with this movie is having a good time. Kurt Russell did a fantastic job as the antagonist. He was probably having the most fun out of anyone on the set. And just like every single other Tarantino film, the dialogue is fantastic. Death Proof had the balls to replace the main cast from the first half of the movie with complete strangers. When we are introduced to these new characters, their conversation starts with nonsense or talking about how they should treat their boyfriends or whatever. But somehow, I'm still invested. The conversation shows off their personalities. We get a sense of what these characters are like, which to me is a very hard feat to pull off. Believing that you can invest your viewers into a completely new cast with dialogue that has nothing to do with the story. That takes fucking balls, and I gotta respect that. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood has a great cast. It's about as strong as a Death Proof plotline. You know, it's not the strongest, but I would still consider it good. But then again, this is more of an atmospheric type of film. You know, like Space Odyssey or Lost in Translation. To me, a conversation with clever dialogue in film is just as enjoyable as Brad Pitt just driving around Hollywood. At that point, it feels like the film's just trying to relax, and this kind of gives the audience an opportunity to relax as well, while we soak in the environment and the setting of the movie. So yeah, I actually really like the pacing in this film. The film is more about the environment around the characters as opposed to the characters themselves, but they do have time to develop the characters. And yeah, these characters aren't fantastic or anything, but I don't think the movie was going for that in the first place. They're likable and charming and fun, and I think that's enough for this film. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is also really funny. In my opinion, I believe this film has the most hilarious climax out of any of the Tarantino films. It's clever, it's over the top, it has Tarantino written all over it, it's so much fun. Jackie Brown has quite the cast. Samuel L. Jackson, Michael Keaton, Robert De Niro, but I think the best actor in this movie was Robert Forster, especially towards the ending where he put a very emotional performance in the film. But what's also great is that these performances are mixed well with great characters. I mean, every single character in this film is very unforgettable. This film had 100% of my attention with the plot. I think it could have ended a little better, but it was still really good. And even though this film kind of relates to 40-year-olds, I could still get behind it, even at some points relate to some of the characters, despite the fact that their character traits revolve around their age. Now, I'm not a fucking 40-year-old man, but I could still understand the morals and positions coming from the characters. Jackie Brown is a very solid film. It has great characters, a great plot, and great performances. Reservoir Dogs, one of Tarantino's shorter films. Still a lot of fun. This is one of the Tarantino films where the dialogue just kind of grabs you in. It's not really action-packed. Most of the movie is filmed in one location. But because the dialogue is so good and memorable, I don't really give a shit. I think one of Tarantino's greatest feats is making every single character in this film memorable, even though most of them don't get that much screen time. They're all just really funny. And the segment with the song Stuck in the Middle with You is one of my favorite cinematic scenes of all time. The way it's directed, the cinematography, the characters just having fun, it's just super enjoyable. Now, one flaw I do have with this movie is that at the end, they kind of have this Mexican standoff type of thing, which, you know, would be fine in most Tarantino films, but this one is more grounded. To me, it felt kind of out of place, but other than that, solid film. Now, I've only seen the extended cut of Hateful Eight, because I've been told that's a better version since it fleshes out more characters, and I'm inclined to believe them. Much like Reservoir Dogs, most of this film takes place in one location, so it's heavily reliant on dialogue. And again, Tarantino knocks it out of the park. Sometimes these characters talk about nothing and I'm still invested. I've actually grown to know that Hateful Eight is probably everyone's least favorite Tarantino film. There are a lot of people who just straight up don't like this film, and I guess I can kinda see why. I mean, this film is basically just dialogue. There's a few funny over-the-top scenes, but other than that, it's basically just characters talking to each other. There are only like 2 action scenes in this entire movie, so I can kinda see why people are turned off by it. The pacing can be kinda slow, but I love the dialogue scenes, and I think every single character in this film is incredibly strong. So again, I understand why people don't like this film, but personally, I love it. And I do recommend watching the extended cut rather than the actual movie. It develops the characters a lot more. Django Unchained has pancake tone. It's flip-floppity. But this is one of those rare instances where the movie's change in tone benefits the overall movie. These type of tone changes help enhance the comedy, because now it's more unpredictable. Like, I don't know when an over-the-top moment is coming, but when it does come, it slaps me in the face and it's hilarious. And because of this writing tactic, moments like Bye Miss Laura are 100 times funnier than they need to be. But this movie's comedy doesn't just rely on tone changing. The character Stevens, played by Samuel Jackson, is just amazing. One of the funniest performances I've ever seen. Now, I've just talked about how funny this movie is. It's not just a comedy though, it's also got action, and there are a lot of scenes that show the harshness of slavery, which is pretty bold because it's very hard to pull off a film where you have over-the-top comedy and showing the real harshness of slavery. But Tarantino makes it work. Like I said, because of the tone changing, the moments that are supposed to hit you hit really hard, because you don't expect that heavy of an impact. Django Unchained also has a really good cast. Christopher Waltz, Jamie Foxx, Leonardo DiCaprio, all play their characters exceptionally well. We're just gonna consider this the whole bloody affair because, I mean, I consider Kill Bill Volume 1 and Volume 2 in the same caliber. I mean, both films are equally fantastic. It's a classic revenge story, but everything in the film is over the top. This is still one of my favorite action movies of all time, simply because of the action. I mean, it also has great characters and a story behind it, but the action in these films are well choreographed and just mind-blowing. But what I really admire about the Kill Bill films is that each villain is given some sort of character. There are a lot of mini bosses in these films, but each one of these antagonists have some sort of personality, and each one of them is memorable. Again, very hard feat to pull off. You don't have to give the mini-bosses personality, but it adds so much more to the movie. It's like if Infinity War gave the Black Order personality and character, as opposed to just making them throwaway villains. Just imagine if the antagonists in Kill Bill were just throwaway villains. It would make the overall film way less interesting. I mean, yeah, the movie is about the bride, but these antagonists give the movie a lot more personality. Volume 1 and 2 are both very solid, so they deserve a high place on this list. Yes, I have Pulp Fiction at number 2, so you probably know what's at number 1 now. Pulp Fiction is often regarded as one of the best films of all time, and I can definitely see why. Pulp Fiction is actually the first Tarantino film I've ever seen, and it's a great introduction for his movies. Again, it's another movie with characters talking about nothing, but you're still invested. As soon as we meet these characters, to me, they're automatically charming, fun, and just overall likable. Again, don't know shit about them, but they still invest me into the conversation they're having. I praised Death Proof and Hateful Eight for having heavy dialogue scenes with nothing involved in the conversation, but Pulp Fiction is in its own category when it comes to that, because these conversations are pretty relatable. These characters feel like real people. There's nothing really more to talk about with Pulp Fiction because everyone is pretty aware about why this film is so great. I love the music, I love the characters, I love the cinematography, and there's a lot of subtlety and foreshadowing in the film that you only pick up when you watch it a second or third time. Okay, so the main reason I have Inglourious Basterds over Pulp Fiction, which again is still a really good movie, well, truth be told, Inglourious Basterds is everything I love in a film. It's over the top, characters are memorable, the plot is somewhat complex but at the same time easy to follow, amazing dialogue, great comedy, noteworthy cinematography, and incredible performances. Christopher Waltz knocked it out of the park. This is one of the best acted films I've ever seen. Everyone is amazing in it. Inglourious Basterds is a retelling of World War II, but everything is just exaggerated. Even though Hans Landa kind of takes a spotlight in this film, the other characters are still incredible. It's kind of like The Dark Knight in a way, you know, the Joker takes a spotlight, but everything else is also incredible, so people sometimes forget about everything outside of the best thing of the film. Like, there were other good characters like Aldo Rain, Shosanna, the Bear Jew, Hugo. Even one-scene characters like Major Hellstorm have a lot of personality to them. I have zero problems with this film. It is one of my favorite movies of all time.